Hey, what's up guys, my name is Charlie. Today we're going to be doing some more requested reaction videos, and this video is requested by the Mighty Emerald, and it's going to be the story of Rob the Robot by Gaming Historian. Oh Christ, the story of Rob the Robot? Damn. Okay, here we go, Rob the Robot. Yeah, I remember Rob the Robot. We actually watched an Angry Video Game Nerd episode on Rob the Robot when he was trying to take over the world and erase all bad games and turn every single game into what was it, Gyromite or something like that. I don't know. It was a very weird and bizarre episode, but it was totally awesome. But, yeah, let's, check out the video, shall we? Let's go. Ooh, Skynet has arisen.
The Trojan War. After 10 years, the battle between the Greeks and Trojans had reached a stalemate. The Greeks came up with a plan. Build a massive wooden horse, hide soldiers inside, and sail the entire Greek army away. The Trojans brought the horse into the city of Troy and celebrated. But at night, the Greek forces slipped out of the horse and opened the gates to the city. The returning Greek army entered Troy and slaughtered everyone. The Trojan horse is one of the most famous stories in Greek mythology.
Of course.
Today, it's a metaphor. It's something that is intended to subvert from within by deceptive means. In 1985, Nintendo had their own Trojan horse. Only he was a robot, and his job was to get the Nintendo Entertainment System into stores that were no longer interested in video games.
Oh boy.
His name was R.O.B.
Hello, Rob. Rob the Robot.
On July 15th, 1983, Nintendo released the Famicom in Japan. It launched with 3 games, Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and Popeye, all faithful ports of their arcade counterparts. Within the first 2 months, Nintendo sold 500,000 units. By the end of 1984, it was the best-selling system in Japan. Nintendo sold the Famicom as fast as they could produce it. Even better, Nintendo faced little to no competition. Sega's first console, the SG-1000, was released on the same day as the Famicom. It flopped. With a 90% market share in Japan, Nintendo set their sights on the rest of the world. At first, they tried to broker a deal with Atari, the largest video game company in the world.
Nintendo is the king, honest
The deal
to God.
stated that Nintendo would create the hardware and software,
so
while
much.
Atari would sell and distribute outside of Japan. Atari also requested that Nintendo program 4 of their games for the Famicom. But the deal fell through for several reasons. Atari didn't like that they did all the work, while Nintendo reaped the rewards. Atari also felt their upcoming 7800 console was superior to the Famicom. But the biggest reason of all was the video game industry in North America was crashing. A flood of consoles and poorly made games destroyed consumer confidence. In 1983 alone, Atari lost $539 million. CEO Ray Kassar was fired, and the company was split in half and sold to the highest bidder. Retailers began clearing their excess inventory. Games that retailed for $40 now sold for $4.
Wow.
And there stood Nintendo, still wondering how to bring the
That's what happens
Famicom
when you make
to
so many
North
shitty
America.
games at once.
They technically had a presence in North America with their arcade games and Game & Watch handhelds, but it was small potatoes compared to launching a video game console. But they didn't have a lot of options. No other companies wanted to work with them. So Nintendo bet on themselves. Nintendo of America president Minoru Arakawa assessed the situation. While the industry had indeed crashed, kids still poured into the arcades. He was convinced that the market crashed due to poor business practices, not a loss of interest in video games. Previous video game systems had failed to bring the arcade experience home. Arakawa knew the Famicom could do it. But retailers wanted nothing to do with the system. Video games were a dead fad. It would be easier to sell popsicles in the Arctic, said one executive. So Nintendo shifted gears and redesigned the Famicom to look more like a computer. Personal computers were on the rise. In fact, it was a contributing factor to the video game crash. By 1983, it was estimated that there were 10 million PCs in US households.
PC
Why buy a
Master
video game
Race.
console when you could get a PC? Nintendo
God bless
designers
the
Lance
PC
Barr
master
and
race.
Don James came up with the Advanced Video System. It looked sleek, high-tech, not anything like a video game console. It featured a keyboard, a zapper gun, joystick, wireless infrared controllers, and a tape drive to store and save custom data.
Jesus.
In January of 1985, at the Winter
bet that's
Consumer Electronics
expensive.
Show, Nintendo unveiled the Advanced Video System to the public. People were intrigued.
We were very surprised to see it due to the fact that everyone has run scared regarding dedicated gaming systems. Certainly its eventual success in this country is impossible to predict. Computer Entertainer, February 1985.
The Nintendo booth was busy the entire show. They passed out brochures to hype the system. Welcome to the future of American home video entertainment, it said. Businessmen lined up to fire a few shots in Duck Hunt. But despite all the press, people could see right through the high-tech design and fancy peripherals. This was an expensive video game system.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's gonna be
Nintendo
fucking
didn't receive a
expensive.
single order. Back to the drawing board. To get retailers interested in the
That must have
Famicom,
been in
Nintendo needed to do two things.
a ridiculous
Lower the
amount of
price
money.
point and make the system look even less like a video game console. From there, the system got a new and final design. A gray and black box that loaded games similar to the way a VCR accepted a videotape. Nintendo of America employees called it
Power
the lunchbox.
resets.
Nintendo of Japan also created a new, toy-inspired accessory for the system. Gunpei Yokoi and his team at R&D 1 landed that job. Yokoi was Nintendo's top engineer who had come up with several popular toys and games, including the Ultra Hand and the Game & Watch handhelds. If anyone could create a fun, eye-catching toy for the system, it was him.
Yeah, of course.
Several months later, at Nintendo of America headquarters in Redmond, Washington, warehouse manager Howard Phillips opened up a package from Nintendo of Japan. Inside was a small toy robot. After reading some instructions and hooking everything up, Phillips tried it out. A small crowd gathered around him. Phillips input commands from the controller. The robot moved, slowly, and it made a
Very
loud,
slowly.
grinding noise. People laughed. That thing was definitely like watching grass grow, said Gail Tilden, head of marketing and PR. Its name was R.O.B, short for Robotic Operating Buddy. Its supposed purpose was to play video games with you. But R.O.B's real goal was to get Nintendo's new system, dubbed the Nintendo Entertainment System, onto store shelves. Despite his slow gameplay, R.O.B was very cool looking, and robots were all the rage in pop culture. He fit right in with other popular toys of the time, including
course.
Transformers.
Transformers,
But
of course.
Nintendo of America was skeptical. R.O.B looked cool, but he was slow and loud. He wasn't that much fun. They needed to get their console into American stores, but R.O.B didn't seem like the answer. A few employees joked that they should offer a conversion kit to turn R.O.B into a lamp. Despite internal skepticism,
Don't do that to
R.O.B
poor
made his debut
R.O.B.
in the summer of 1985 at the Consumer Electronics Show. 2 R.O.B-compatible games were playable at the Nintendo booth. Gyromite
Stack Up.
and Stack Up.
Christ.
Nintendo showed off its video entertainment system in a CES booth that was
Skynet
constantly
Red
filled
Eyes,
with a
Jesus.
steady stream of game players. If games are truly dead, as much of the press has been claiming, why were all these people crowding the controls of the 20 different titles available for play? Computer Entertainer, July 1985.
Reaction to the Nintendo Entertainment System
It's pretty
and
cool,
R.O.B
you've
the
got to admit,
Robot
the
was
design is
much
pretty
better than
cool.
the Advanced Video System. R.O.B the Robot seemed like fun. Still, retailers were reluctant to place orders. Nintendo of America president Minoru
Bit like the
Arakawa
Kinect.
considered his options. Why release a system
Nobody
if
wants
no
the
one is
bloody thing.
interested? He called Nintendo of Japan president and his father-in-law, Hiroshi Yamauchi, to discuss. Yamauchi refused to give up. We must get it into the hands of the customer, he said. He suggested they test the market by releasing the NES in one city, New York City.
New York. of
Nintendo
course.
chose New York City for several reasons. It was the largest city in the United States, which
and
would
very
give them a
heavily
good sample
populated.
size. The market was also extremely
New
competitive.
York City is a
It was
place
home
where you
to
want to
FAO
sell shit.
Schwartz,
Just
arguably the most famous toy store in the world.
let people buy
And,
stuff.
as Frank Sinatra once sang in New York, New York, If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. In the summer of 1985, Nintendo of America had a budget of $50 million to get the Nintendo Entertainment System
You gotta admit,
into
that
stores.
Rob the Robot's
They rented
pretty
a
cool.
warehouse in Hackensack, New Jersey, and got to work. That summer, we had to create not just the name of the product itself, but the logos and packaging, and the look and feel, and the manuals and writing. Just anything you can imagine doing, but doing it all at one time, recalled Gail Tilden. To help get the NES into stores, Tilden made it a point not to use the words
Deluxe
video
set.
game anywhere on the packaging or in the marketing. The NES wasn't a video game console. It was an entertainment system. Game cartridges were called game
It's a video
packs.
game console.
To show off the graphical capabilities of the NES, Nintendo chose to show in-game sprites on the covers of games. But the star of the show was Rob the Robot. The TV commercial and print ads featured Rob hatching out of an egg, giving birth to a new form of entertainment. Meanwhile, Don James and Lance Barr worked on the in-store display units. Inside the glass was everything that came in the NES Deluxe set. On top was a giant Rob head, along
That's
with
pretty
screenshots
awesome.
of the various games. To convince stores to take the system, Nintendo took a gamble and presented a wild offer. They would stock all the stores and set up all the displays. For 90 days, stores wouldn't have to pay a dime for the inventory. After 90 days, they could pay Nintendo for what sold and give back the rest of the stock. Store managers thought Nintendo was nuts, but there was little risk for them, so it was an easy decision.
Yeah.
All day and night, members of Nintendo of America raced to set up in-store displays at 500 stores in the New York,
That is
New
a
Jersey
lot of
area.
influence.
It was probably the longest and hardest I ever worked consecutive days in my life, recalled Don James. On Wednesday, October 9th, Nintendo held their NES launch party. Pins and t-shirts were handed out featuring Rob with the text, "A Star is Born." Although the media was invited to
boy.
the event, no one from the press showed up. The following weekend, on October 18th, 1985, the Nintendo Entertainment System and Rob the Robot officially launched in North America, with the suggested retail price of $159.95. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $320 today. In Japan,
same price
Rob
as the
was
console
known as
today.
Famicom Robot and had colors to match the Famicom system. The Nintendo Entertainment System launched with 17 games. 2 of them were compatible with Rob. Gyromite, which came
Gyromite,
packaged with
Stack
the
Up.
system, and Stack Up.
The only
Let's
two
take a look.
godforsaken games.
The NES Deluxe set comes with the Nintendo console, hookups, 2 controllers, a zapper gun, Rob the Robot, and 2 games, Duck Hunt and Gyromite. Rob comes with a few attachments as well. A gyro holder, a controller tray, a gyro spinner,
Oh,
2 gyros,
Christ.
and hands to pick
So
up the
much
gyros.
shit.
These are all required to play Gyromite with Rob.
Oh, God.
Rob also comes
They
with a
could've
little
really
eye
simplified
visor.
this.
If your television is too bright, Rob can have trouble reading signals that come
So
from
he's
it.
got to wear
so the
those cool
visor is there
sunglasses.
to help with that issue.
He's wearing
Besides the deluxe
sunglasses.
set, Rob was also sold separately for a suggested retail price of $49.95. However, he didn't come with any of the accessories for Gyromite. You would have had to buy the retail release of Gyromite to get them.
Yeah, that
Rob
sort of
requires
sucks.
4 AA batteries to operate, while the
bloody
gyro
hell.
spinner requires 1 D battery.
Jesus
To get
Christ,
Rob the
that's a lot
Robot
of
ready to
power.
play, first you have to
That's
get
a lot
him
of
in the
fucking
standby
power.
position. When you power Rob on, he will start adjusting himself to the correct position, with his arms open and facing forward. Once that's done, you can attach the gyro accessories. Now that Rob is set up, let's test him out with Gyromite. You take controller 1, while Rob uses controller 2. On the main menu of Gyromite are several options. The first is Test.
Test.
This sends a signal from the TV to Rob to ensure he is focused on the television screen. When the light on Rob's head lights up, he is ready to play. Now before we go any further, let's dive into how Rob actually works. Inside of Rob's eyes are photosensitive lenses.
Okay.
The game will transmit signals to Rob through the television screen with timed flashes, using the colors green and black. Rob will pick up these signals, translate them to a command, and move accordingly using battery-powered motors and gears located inside. And that's basically it. Technically, R.O.B is a wireless accessory for the NES, but he doesn't interact with the console directly. He's just a robot that can push buttons on a controller, albeit very slowly. You'll see in a minute.
Very slowly.
Back to Gyromite. Option 2 is Direct. This is where you can input commands and test out R.O.B's functionality and movement. Basically a practice room. Then there is Game A. You control Professor Hector, and your goal is to collect all of the dynamite in each room before time runs out, all while avoiding these enemies called Smicks. Professor Hector has turnips he can put down to distract the Smicks. Along the way, you will be blocked by red and blue pipes. This is where R.O.B comes in. If you want a pipe to move, you need to ask R.O.B for help. By pressing Start, the game enters a command screen. Then you enter a command for R.O.B. Pressing up raises his arms. Pressing down lowers his arms. Pressing left turns R.O.B to the left.
It's kind of pretty cool.
And pressing right turns R.O.B to the right. A opens R.O.B's arms, and B closes R.O.B's arms. So in this game, you will need to grab a gyro and press it down on the corresponding color. Pressing down on these will press either the A or B button on the NES controller located in the tray. Now you might be wondering, why are there two gyros? Why is there a gyro spinner? In some levels, you will need to press down on both buttons. Using the gyro spinner allows you to keep one gyro pressed down on a button while you grab the other. It seems like a lot of work just to press the A or B button on the second controller.
Look at this.
Well,
Totally awesome.
You're right. It takes a long time, and one wrong move can be detrimental to finishing the level on time. It is infinitely easier to just input commands yourself on the second controller, or have a friend do it.
Yeah.
The final game on Gyromite is Game B.
You.
In this game, Professor Hector is sleepwalking, and you have to ensure he makes it to the end. You'll need to use R.O.B to raise and lower pipes as he walks along. This game was more fun with R.O.B than Game A, but it's still quite a struggle. And that's Gyromite. Playing with R.O.B is kind of a chore, but with a second player or by playing solo, it's a fairly decent game.
It's kind of interesting.
It has some pretty catchy music too. Now let's move on to the
strange,
only
fun
other R.O.B the
experiment.
Robot compatible game, Stack Up.
Oh, Christ,
Stack
yes.
Up was sold separately at a suggested retail price of $34.95. Inside was the game, along with 5 trays and 5 different colored blocks.
Jesus.
R.O.B also got a new set of hands to help him pick up the blocks. However, there is no controller tray. How does R.O.B play this game? Well, that's the interesting thing about Stack Up. It uses a trust system. There are 5 game modes in total. Test, just like Gyromite, allows you to confirm that R.O.B is ready to play. Direct lets you control R.O.B directly, but it also contains a game where you have to arrange the colored blocks to match the picture. Each picture has a par, meaning the number of steps it should take to match the picture. Match everything up and press start to let the game know you are done. That's what I mean by a trust system. The game is just assuming you did the work and scores you accordingly. The next game is Memory. Here you have to input a set of commands to ensure the blocks will match the picture. Unlike Direct, however, you have to input all of your commands first before R.O.B moves. This one is a little challenging, but it is rewarding to see your laid out plans come to fruition. The next game is
Rob the
One-Player
Robot typing
Bingo.
in the password.
In this game, you control Professor Hector in a 5x5 grid. When you press on 5 blocks successfully, it will input a command to R.O.B. Your goal is to once again match the picture on the screen. This time, you don't have to worry about the color of the blocks. You also have to watch out for Flipper and Spike, who can input their own commands and mess up their sequence. The final game is Two-Player Bingo. Player 1 controls Professor Hector, while Player 2 controls Professor Vector. I guess that's his brother? The goal of the game is to compete for blocks. Player 1 gets tray 1 and 2 and starts with 1 block. Player 2 gets trays 4 and 5 and starts with 1 block. The remaining 3 blocks are in the middle tray. You have to compete to input commands and grab the most blocks before time runs out. So there you have it, R.O.B the Robot and the only 2 compatible games, Gyromite and Stack Up. Fun fact, both of these titles were never officially localized. To save time and money, Nintendo of America took the Japanese versions of the games and added a pin adapter to the cartridge so it would work on an NES. That's why the title screens of these games show the Japanese name, Gyromite is Robot Gyro, while Stack Up is Robot Block.
Wow.
According to
Didn't know that.
Computer Entertainer magazine, Nintendo planned to produce 4 more ROB-compatible games, but they were never released.
I wonder why.
During the early days of the NES, ROB was used to showcase the Nintendo Entertainment System and was demoed in-store. Product managers were given a script to read while playing with ROB. But when it came to reviews, people weren't so eager to praise the robotic operating buddy. Mark Seeley of Crash Magazine said, "I asked for a demonstration of this system using the Robot Assistant, and have never seen anything so complicated and difficult in all my life." Family Computing
Yeah,
Magazine said,
it really
"While
is
Rob is a
overly
cute little guy,
complicated.
there isn't much you can do with him. There are only 2 game cartridges available that interact with Rob, and neither generates much excitement." The reviews weren't glowing, but it didn't matter. Nintendo President Hiroshi Yamauchi was correct when he stated that they must get the system into the hands of the consumer. Word spread quickly about how much fun the Nintendo Entertainment System was, particularly games like Super Mario Bros. By the end of 1985, Nintendo passed their projected goal of 50,000
Batteries
units
not
sold.
included.
In January and
Every
February of
fucking commercial, every
1986,
toy
an independent
commercial,
research
batteries are never
firm polled
included.
200 NES owners. The results were very encouraging. For the question, "Have you recommended this system to friends or neighbors?" 89% of adults said yes. 83% of kids said yes. And a whopping 95% of teenagers said yes. The final question asked what the main reason was for purchasing an NES. 26% of shoppers stated their child asked for it. The main reason children asked for it? Coming in at number 1 with 19% was Rob the Robot. It was clear evidence that the Rob the Robot marketing angle worked perfectly. Nintendo launched a second test market in Los Angeles in early 1986. On March 20th, 1986, Nintendo announced they were shipping the console nationwide with a $20 million advertising campaign.
Damn.
But there was another interesting
It's a
announcement
lot
as
of
well.
money.
Nintendo
back
would
then,
begin selling
anyway.
a new console package. The package included an NES, 2 controllers, and Super Mario Bros. It was a smart move. By the end of 1986, Nintendo
of
had
course,
sold
Mario's
around
very
4 million consoles. It was a huge turnaround. After a devastating market crash in 1983, video games were
Doing the
officially
video
back
game
in
market
North
wasn't
America.
humanly possible.
By
It wasn't.
1988, the Nintendo Entertainment System had become a smash hit.
Yep.
It was no longer considered a fad. Critics were
Became
no
the
longer
hip-
skeptical.
The hip console.
At this point, Rob the Robot was essentially retired, his job complete. It's fair to wonder if Nintendo could
He
have
completed
succeeded
his
without
programming.
Rob. They probably could have, but not as quickly. Rob launched the company into
Rob
a new
deserves
era
credit.
of financial success and revitalized what many experts claimed was a dead industry. Today, Rob the Robot's legacy lives on in the form of video game cameos. He makes an appearance in several Nintendo games, including Star Tropics and the Super Smash Bros. Series.
Oh,
He
sweet.
even got his own
I didn't know
amiibo
Rob
toy.
was in the
Today,
Super
Rob
Smash
is
Bros.
considered a
series.
collector's piece, more of a statue than an actual accessory.
Hmm.
Is Rob the Robot fun? Not really. It's a unique piece of technology, sure, but it's painfully slow. But Rob did look cool, and that
Oh, yeah,
was
he looked
really
totally
all that
awesome.
mattered. GameSpy's Christian Nutt commented, "The whole Rob thing totally worked on me. In 1986, I was 9, and I'd just been completely bowled over by Short Circuit. The first
Short
time I
Circuit.
saw anything about
Oh,
the NES,
Christ.
I didn't even pay
We did
attention to
Nostalgia
anything
Critic
about the
review on that
system
movie.
besides the simple fact that it came with a robot." That sums it up pretty well. Rob the Robot, Nintendo's Trojan Horse. That's all for this episode of The Gaming Historian. Thanks for watching.
Okay, that was very long and extensive. Christ. I mean, fucking hell, the information on that one overloaded me. Whew. Christ, when I wanted a history
Funding for
lesson...
Gaming Historian
Oh,
is provided
Jesus,
in
okay.
part by supporters on Patreon.
That's alright,
Thank
just
you.
talk over me. Bloody thing. Oh, bloody hell. Yeah, when I wanted a history lesson, I didn't expect to have a fucking history lesson. If that makes sense. I wanted the short version. Oh, fucking Spaceballs. Okay, that's the end of the video. That was the story of Rob the Robot, gaming historian. Very informative, very, very informative. But then again, that's what you come here for, to learn the history of Rob the Robot, of course. But so much information. I've already forgot like 8% of it all. I remember some parts, but 8% I've already forgotten. But yeah, it was totally awesome, totally cool to see Rob the Robot. I can't get Rob the Robot. I wonder if I can get it on eBay or something like that. I want to get the Power Glove. I want to get Rob the Robot. I want to get the NES Zapper or something like that. I don't know. I just want to get all these little cool little accessories and nostalgic sort of items from the past. Yeah, but I bet they're fucking expensive. I bet they're like $200 or $300 for like a mint edition, and then there's probably like $1,000 for an unboxed Rob the Robot or something like that. Oh Christ, it's so expensive. Why is everything so goddamn expensive? I know collecting stuff is, expensive, but Jesus. I really wish they would just lower the prices a bit and, make it a little bit more easier. Because, it's just expensive as shit. But yeah, I mean, that's the way game and game accessory collections are these days. Everything's always expensive. It makes sense, but, I mean, I just wish they would lower the price. Just $20 at least. Because you normally have to pay for the bloody shipping as well. But yeah, it was totally awesome. Really enjoyed it. Good to see Rob the Robot again. One day he's gonna turn into Skynet and take over the world. But yeah, I like those little sunglasses Rob had. That was totally awesome. He had his own personal sunglasses. But yeah, if you like this video, make sure to give a like, comment down below, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.